the Fox 10 News Now update. Joining me is John Hook. We are here awaiting Governor Ducey's State of the State address.
Right. First one he's had since he became governor, elected in November.
Mm-hmm. So he took office last week?
He did.
Officially?
Yeah, and sworn in last week, and then the legislature sworn in today. So, they're ready to go. They're ready to do work, and this is a chance to lay out a blueprint. This is not unlike the President's State of the Union address.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing on a local level with the state of Arizona. And the challenges are huge, and the governor will talk about it today. The number that is fixated in everyone's mind is $1 billion. That's what we're short in this state.
We're short. I thought it was $500 million, but it's expected to grow to $1
Yes,
billion.
between the next two budget cycles, we're in a hole, a deep, deep hole. And part of that is due to the fact that Governor Brewer made good on her promise. She championed a 1 cent sales tax, temporary sales tax, to bridge us during the really bad times in the state, during the real downturn. But she said this, unlike what happens in government, if a tax is instituted, it usually never goes away. She said this, you have my word, it's going to go away. So it did. So it was sunsetted a year ago. And now this has put us back in the hole a little bit because that revenue has not come in.
So we needed that.
Well, we needed it to bridge, and frankly, the revenues have not come in as projected. A lot of these guys thought, including Treasurer Ducey, when he was treasurer, they felt that we were going to start to climb out of this. It has not happened. The revenues have still not kept pace with what they projected. So the shortfall grows, and we have pressing issues in this state, dealing with children. You know about the modification and the complete overhaul of Child Protective Services.
Right.
That happened last year, so we've spent money on that. Education is a huge part of the budget. Almost half of the state budget
And he's saying he won't
goes
cut
to education.
He
will not.
Claims.
He will not cut it.
Right.
He is going to hold the line, but he's also going to say, look, we cannot institute any further government programs that we can't pay for. Again, you're seeing now, and you'll see it when he steps out there, the businessman approach to this job. This is a guy who's run a business, Cold Stone Creamery. He was a CEO, and he founded it. He helped found it. He's going to take that approach. Let's look at the books and find out where we are overspending. It's not. He thinks it's a spending problem more than a revenue problem, but in reality, it's both, and he knows that.
So today he's supposed to outline his plan to reduce that deficit,
or
curb the deficit,
and at least
handle the deficit.
put a cap on any more spending. He's going to freeze government hiring, no more hires. He's going to say, look, we're not in a position to hire people. Much as he would have done at Cold Stone Creamery. If you don't have the money and you're not growing, you can't hire people.
Right.
So
even if people want jobs.
And he's going to quote Ronald Reagan. That's his guiding light. Ronald Reagan is his beacon, his idol, and you'll hear him quote Ronald Reagan during the speech as well.
Right. Let's actually take a live look right now at State Senate.
There it is.
He's expected to speak shortly.
And this is always, a day of great hope in the state because it's a new direction. He's going to really appeal to bipartisan approaches on these issues, saying that, look, Democrats and Republicans have certain things that they believe in: better education for our kids, better government service. These are things that we can agree on and we can find common ground. And the education issue particularly, which has been a vexing issue because we need to improve education in this state.
Right.
Yet the money has not been there to put money into education. So he's going to try to appeal to everyone, Republican or Democrat, to look at this in a bipartisan way, find out how we can streamline this. And as he says and has said, dating back to, during the campaign, we've got to figure out a way to put more money in the classroom, not more money in administration. So you're going to hear that as well. And for Ducey, he's really got to start out on the right foot to say, look, we've got to fix these problems, and I can't do it alone. I need Republicans and Democrats both to sign on to this. And again, it's the same problem that faces President Obama. You've got to try to bring everybody on board with what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
It's not easy to do.
So, what happens after?
Well, that's the thing. The State of the State and the State of the Union for the President in a couple of weeks, it's the same thing. You lay out what your wish is. It doesn't mean that that's reality. And so he's talking about finding efficiencies in education.
What does that mean?
Well, it means trying to find out where we're misspending. One of the things he's going to talk about is how there are many schools that enrollment has dropped in these schools and that we probably need to shut them down rather than keep them open because it's a drain on the finite dollars. Mm-hmm. If there aren't enough kids in that school, you probably need to shut it down, even though you don't want to, because that impacts neighborhoods. It impacts housing around that school. So it's not your first choice, but what he's saying is we need to put money in that classroom. That's what we need to do. And if we need to move kids, and he's going to talk
Ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please take your seats? We're going to start the next part of the session.
This is a big moment for Ducey. This is a big moment because it's the first time we see him in the role of governing. Mm-hmm. And this is when you lay out your agenda. And he'll never forget it, the first one. There'll be 4 of these. And who knows if he's reelected, if he wants to run again,
right.
There could be many more. But we're assured of 4. And
ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats.
And it's really his chance to set the tone.
Right.
And tell these folks in the legislature, the 90 votes in the House and Senate, where he wants to take this state going forward. And he knows it's a big moment. The press is going to pay a lot of attention to it, but even more importantly, maybe, the public does, and they get a sense of it. But most importantly are the people in that room.
Right.
Because those are the folks who are going to have to either go along or meet him halfway or try to craft something where they can get some of these things done. Right. So that's what we'll see here shortly. And they're trying to get their read on him.
Ladies and gentlemen,
right.
Please take your seats, and if you're carrying any food or drink, please leave it outside of the chamber.
It is after lunch.
It's a little bit like high school government, isn't it? There are
leave your food and drink outside the
and
classroom.
I'll guarantee you, there's a lot of folks in that room who served in their high school government, the Senate or whatever it was, former class presidents, former.
You're looking at
class secretaries, right?
I'm here, though.
Okay, I know.
You know what's interesting about that is no one told me when I was running for senior class president that I would be responsible for my high school reunions the rest of my life.
And you won.
I won, yeah, and that's the problem.
Congratulations,
is that I did not know
Madam
it was going to
President.
be a lifetime commitment. I thought it would be senior year, I get into college all as well. But apparently, I have to organize these reunions for the rest of my life.
Yeah, these are the burdens of power, Samia.
Should have been
By the
president.
way, we should point out Governor Brewer has not just kind of walked quietly into that good night. She tweeted out today.
Oh,
Do you have it?
I did see it.
This was really interesting.
Also, if you have any food or drinks, please place them outside of the chamber.
She issued a tweet earlier today. Outside of you'll see it. I'm not going to ruin the surprise for you. Can you take this?
Yeah, let me just grab it. It's so good.
Well, it's funny. I mean, she is still...
let me pull it up right now.
I think when you see this, you're going to sense that we are going to still be hearing from her from time to time.
So she tweeted, this is her tweet.
My 33-year streak of attending Arizona State of the state speech ends today. Decided to stop here for a treat. She's outside of a Cold Stone.
Right.
An ode to Doug Ducey, the incoming, and good luck number 23, obviously the
Right.
23rd governor of the state. She was the 22nd governor of the state. So it's clever.
Right. I liked it. I actually want to get Cold Stone now today.
There you go.
I feel
There
like
you go.
that's the thing. I mean, maybe I should have gotten it last week, though. Inauguration day.
Okay.
That's a
There's still time. I mean, you still have time in the day, and they're open.
I mean, he's
I don't know,
governor
every
for
night
a
till 9
while. I
o'clock.
guess I have a while.
You've got time. Yeah. I think this will be revealing for Doug Ducey because now he's really had a chance to sit down with this budget and look it over.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get a lot of specifics on where he's going to cut. In fact, he has hinted that
Again,
there
I'm
will
going to
be.
request that you take your seats because the sooner you take the seats, the sooner we get started.
No one's listening.
Well, they're all
Everyone's
they're all getting to know each other. The new class here, so there are a lot of
Right.
newcomers
Lots
in there,
of mingling.
and a lot of old friends that are mingling and catching up too. So, but at any rate, he I don't think we're going to hear where cuts are going to be made. We're not going to get that kind of specifics. That'll come later. But I know he wants to get some people looking at it, at how we institute cuts in state government, which he is really going to talk a lot about today, and saying that we need to take a fresh look at this stuff.
Right.
But basically, again, in the world of education, because I did the debate with Doug Ducey and Fred Duval, and moderated the debate on education. We specifically, crafted an entire debate centered around education because it's such a big issue.
Right.
And people in the know told me we have stripped this thing down as far as we can strip it. They said there is no money to be saved.
So what were the highlights during that debate? I was
the highlight of the debate got into, if we want to improve education, there is a point where, yes, money doesn't solve everything, but if you want to pay teachers more, if you want to try to improve the classroom, there is a certain baseline level of spending you've got to reach, and I think everybody agrees there's got to be some money spent on this issue. And because we were in this budgetary crisis, it just wasn't spent. In fact, we cut funding for education during that time. Cut it dramatically. It's not that the lawmakers wanted to, they had to. If 50% of your state budget goes to education, K through 12,
right,
and you need to cut state government,
where do you
that
cut?
50% of the pie will not be exempt. You're going to have to cut in education. That's the low-hanging fruit, unfortunately, that they were able to cut from, and they did.
Why is it that what makes our state different from every other state in terms of their education spending?
Well, we have been traditionally very low in education spending compared to other states around the country. In terms of per capita spending, we rank in the bottom 5 or 6 in the country. So, now granted, there are costs of living adjustments based on, where you live.
Sure.
That you have to factor in, but it just straight up comparison that some don't think is fair, but we rank near the bottom.
Then why is education, I guess, 50% of our budget versus another state?
Listen, it's the same in every state because there are certain things state government has to do, and when you're educating all of these children, in our case, several million kids. I think it's 1.5 million.
Please come to order.
We have to do that, and it's expensive. It's wickedly expensive.
Make sure everybody
but it's an investment in the future. And what
into this place.
what
I
the
want you to thank every staff.
what the candidates were both agreeing is that our future is tied to education to some degree. If we don't have a good education base here, it's going to be very hard to attract jobs. Very hard to attract businesses, the kinds of businesses you want to be here. If the education
we
system
couldn't do this without
people
them.
won't want to locate there because they won't want to.
Just wanted to
say,
say,
look,
shout out
the
to,
schools are a mess in
Mr.
Arizona. I'm not
Brett
going.
Meekum
We're not going to move our
Jodi
company
staff.
there.
It is his
that's
birthday.
the
Happy
problem.
Birthday.
Right.
So it's a very big issue.
What is the solution?
And I'd like to introduce
the solution is
the President of the Senate in the great state of Arizona.
The solution
my very
is
good friend,
improving economic times
Mr.
where money is rolling in and we've got more discretionary dollars to spend where we want to spend it. And we're just not in that situation. We're still $1 billion in the hole. So the money is not there to say, okay, we're going to put more money at education. It just doesn't exist.
So is the only way to generate money taxes? Is that the only solution? You're smiling because
I'm smiling because Doug Ducey said when he was sworn in, he will not raise taxes.
Legislature is called
now,
to
Governor
order.
Brewer, when she was sworn in, made no such promise. She said, and she's a Republican, and she had told me she had never voted for a tax increase when she was a member of the legislature. But she said these were extraordinary times, and I was not going to take anything off the table. Doug Ducey has taken tax hikes off the table. He will not raise taxes. He doesn't believe in it fundamentally. He thinks government does too much and spends too much, and he will not raise taxes. At least that's his promise. Now, if he reneges on that, he'll have trouble within his own party with that. You see security in the back of the building getting ready. These are the folks who protect the governor. So DPS provides that security. So those folks are gathered. I've got to believe Doug Ducey's going to be entering here shortly.
Right. Can we hear anything happening right now?
A lot of these folks in that room, they've been through this before. You see John Kavanaugh. I think John Kavanaugh is sitting in the back, the silver-haired guy who's kind of nodding his head back and forth. He's in the back right corner of your screen right below Sami and I.
Oh, I see.
He's a strong Republican voice who is a no-tax guy. Although it was interesting, just the other day, he talked about some interesting ideas to actually raise the wage for prison labor. He said it hasn't been raised since the 70s, and we maybe need to. So that's a sign that maybe there's some softening on both sides of the aisle about some of these issues. Here we go.
Will the members of the Joint Committee please escort His Honor, the Governor of the State of Arizona, to the right of the podium.
I think we lost a little bit of our audio feed in there.
Yeah.
I can't hear the applause. But at any rate, as Doug Ducey makes his way in, you know, again, he's had a chance to look at the books pretty carefully. And during our debate back in October, I pressed them both on where's the money going to come from. And nobody had it or was willing to, at that point, give any solid answers about what we were going to do about the budget crisis. But now it's Doug Ducey's problem. It's like the Chinese proverb, be careful what you wish for, you might get it. Well, he got elected, but now he's got a world of issues. There's Michelle Reagan, Secretary of State, he just passed by. There are a lot of new faces out there today. But again, it's now on his doorstep to try to figure this thing out. And it's not going to be easy. And there will be pain. As Fife Symington told me, Samia, another guy who came from
members of the legislature.
He said there was no way to prepare for this job. There
Members
is
of the
no
legislature,
way to be ready. He said
I present
when you're
to
in
you
there,
the Honorable
it is
Doug
overwhelming.
Ducey,
Right.
Governor of the State of
Let's see what
Arizona.
he has to say.
Thank you. Speaker Gowan, President Biggs, House Leaders Montenegro and Meyer, Senate Leaders Yarborough and Hobbs, Chief Justice Bales, members of the Judiciary and Legislature, fellow Arizonans, thank you all very much and good afternoon. It's been quite a day at this Capitol, and the highlight was your swearing in. Elective office is an honor that rarely comes easy, and I congratulate and welcome each one of you. Whether we've served before or we are new to this place, all of us have arrived here to find serious challenges waiting on us. The test is whether we answer them in a serious way, without trying to buy time or to sidestep obvious problems that need to be dealt with right away. Putting off problems is certainly not what I had in mind in seeking this office, and I know that each of you would say the same about the positions of trust that you hold by right. These next few weeks, we could all use the fresh outlook of newcomers, not trapped in the old ways of thinking about state spending, taxes, public education, and the role of government in general. In government, just as in business, settled assumptions are not always correct assumptions. Conventional wisdom is not always wisdom. And the political parties do not have to be hostile parties set against each other in every case. This, at least, will be the spirit of my administration as I work with you in every way I know how. Naturally, I hope it will be returned in kind. I think we'll all find that the best achievements are shared achievements. A week into this job, I won't press the case that the state of the state is any better off than it was last Monday. But I can tell you this for sure. If you and I can see our way clear to those kind of shared achievements, the people of Arizona will do the rest, and the state of our state will be confident, strong, and on the rise. But we can't do it without fiscal responsibility. In real life, when families or businesses take stock of how they're doing, the answer has a lot to do with the state of their finances. Well, it works the same in government. And turning to our state's checkbook, we start with the number $1 billion. In dollars, that would be the difference between spending and revenue if we were to do nothing about it these next 2 years. Now, maybe I'm of the old school of economics, but this strikes me as a problem. And I am just not persuaded by appeals to raise taxes so we can spend more. I look at it this way. If the problem is spending more than we have, the solution cannot be even more spending. Instead of demanding more revenue from the people, I suggest we demand more fiscal responsibility from our government. So with all the care and debate the people expect of us, and with as little delay or complaint as possible, let's put this budget in balance and let's keep it there. This Friday, just in time for some weekend reading, I will deliver my budget on flash drives to every member of this legislature. It's my best effort to deal with a tough situation. Just as I promised in last year's election, my team and I gave a thorough look to current state expenditures. In reviewing some items, we asked questions that hadn't been asked in a while. Questions like, why does the state of Arizona need an office and a paid lobbyist in Washington, D.C.? The answer is, we don't. So that office and all its expenses will soon be gone, and there will be at least one less lobbyist in Washington. But we didn't stop there. To balance the books, we're going to institute a state government hiring freeze with protections for vital areas like public safety and child safety. However, when it comes to bureaucracy, we're cutting back. The government can't take on any new expenses when we can't afford the ones we already have. Our budget does what budgets are supposed to do. It prioritizes vital commitments that Arizonans value the most: public safety, justice, classrooms, and aid to the needy and vulnerable. My budget doesn't just give the appearance of spending discipline, it offers the reality of spending discipline with decisions that are timely, real, and permanent. And to that end, I propose this. Our state needs an unbiased inspector general mandated to find more areas of savings. And where corruption exists, shine a light on it. This public advocate would be equipped with a badge and subpoena power to go in, ask the tough questions, and be a watchdog for the taxpayers. I want to work with you, the legislature, to make this happen this session. With a tight budget, we've all heard the calls these past few weeks to just go ahead and raise taxes now that we're all safely in office. In this case, as the argument goes, it would be relatively easy because all we'd have to do is cancel all or some of the tax reforms that are currently taking effect. They were passed in a previous legislature, after all, and circumstances have changed. So let's just renege on our commitment. Any way you look at it, canceling Arizona's tax reforms is the wrong way to go. They were designed to put more life in our economy, and that need is stronger than ever. Business people, the ones we count on to create jobs, have been making plans around them. Plans to build, expand, and make new hires. If we change our plans, they'll change theirs. It's a high price to pay for going back on your word. And that is why I say, not on our watch. Another essential of good government are tax rates that are predictable and reasonable. Yet every year, Arizona taxpayers are faced with the threat of a tax increase because we don't tie our income tax to inflation. The result is an automatic tax increase. Let's end this by permanently indexing our income tax to inflation. This is an issue of fairness, and we owe better to all Arizonans, so let's get it done this session. In all that we do this year at this Capitol, let's think big. And let's remember this. The business at hand is not to expand Arizona's government. It is to expand Arizona's economy. By some measures, our economy has been growing, but not nearly at levels we know we can reach. And it's not just overall performance either. We want the kind of growth and opportunity that reaches everyone. Last week, I signed an order placing a moratorium on new regulations in the executive branch. It was a good beginning, but only a beginning. There's also the matter of many state regulations already in place, often for reasons that nobody even remembers. Our small businesses have to deal with all these little rules all the time, just because they're on the books and nobody's bothered to change them. I'm instructing the directors of every agency to conduct a top-to-bottom review on regulations and then send me a list of all the ones we can do without. It's likely to be a long list. And wherever we find any regulation that is outdated, irrational, unfair, or destructive to free and honest enterprise in Arizona, that regulation will be gone. While they're at it, agency directors will also be reducing time frames for permits and licenses. Our government needs to operate at the speed of business. And we have a regulatory review council that's stacked with lobbyists? Who's advocating for the small business person, the startup, the entrepreneur who can't afford an attorney to navigate the endless maze of bureaucracy? I ask that you pass a bill requiring a small business owner on that council, and I'll sign it. You'll have my full attention when you send me any bill that has the purpose of advancing free enterprise and spreading opportunity. When that's the aim, there is always more to do. I am frankly not impressed when I read that Arizona is still the 10th or the 15th or whatever best place in America for finding work or doing business. In the competition among states, our goal is not to be lost in the pack somewhere between California and Texas. Our goal in Arizona is to be the best place in America to work and do business. That same thinking should apply to education. In Arizona public schools, we can do better. A snapshot of Arizona public education came in a survey a few years ago. It measured some basic knowledge among students on matters where knowledge should be assumed. It was an elementary civics test, along the lines of the test required of every new citizen. And when 96% of our kids could not pass, you know something's missing. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor has called this the quiet crisis in education. President Reagan told us, if we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. And John Adams had it right too, remarking that every child in this country should be instructed in the principles of freedom. To appreciate this wisdom, however, it helps to know who Justice O'Connor, President Reagan, and John Adams are. But for too many of our kids, those names sadly don't ring a bell. This is an issue that can and should unite us. These are our children, and not long from now, it will be for them to vote on who sits in your chairs and who stands at this podium. How can we expect them to protect the principles on which this country was founded if we are not preparing them for that task right now? It's time to make this right, and there's a bipartisan bill called the American Civics Bill. Send it to my desk. I'll sign it immediately. It's also time to take charge of our public schools and take responsibility for their results. For too long, the federal government has forced a one-size-fits-all model on our education system. Politicians and bureaucrats on the other side of the country, with no understanding of our state or the needs of our teachers and students, have sought to impose their standards and their will on our youth. In Arizona, educational excellence is the priority. For the next 4 years, I intend to lead under a Classrooms First initiative. Our goal is simple: to improve outcomes in the classrooms for all our children. That is why I propose to spend not less in the classroom than last year, but more. Right now, we spend far too much on administrative costs, on overhead, and that's got to change. So this morning, I signed an executive order assembling a team of education and finance professionals charged with scrubbing every dollar in every formula and statute in order to identify ways to get maximum dollars into the classroom, where it can do the most good for our children. We know where education happens, between a teacher and a student. In my administration, we will honor teachers and the good work that they do. Many teachers will agree with me on this. The quality of a child's education should not be determined by what neighborhood their parents can afford to live in. Our state has some great public schools, among the best in America. But unfortunately, because of yesterday's policies, many families are shut out. They sit and wait as their sons and daughters get another year older, and their dreams of providing them with the best public education possible slip farther and farther away. This has gone on too long. I will not accept this inequality. How many Arizona children should have access to our best public schools? My answer is all of them. Here's what makes the situation even more troubling. Right now, there are nearly 400,000 empty seats in our public school system. In fact, some public schools are completely vacant. These are educational assets funded by the taxpayer, meant to benefit our children, and they are going to waste. It's time to put these assets back to work. So here's the plan. Let's make open enrollment and parental choice a reality and not just a talking point. Let's open the doors and make those empty seats available to our best public schools by creating what I call the Arizona Public School Achievement District. We can give our state's best public schools, quality schools, that are at capacity or have waiting lists, new and innovative options. These public schools would have the ability to apply for use of the empty schools and empty classrooms, so we can put those kids where they belong, in the public school of their parents' choice. We also need to make capital available to our public schools that are ready to expand. My budget will reserve resources that our best public schools can borrow against to bring down their debt service cost. And half the projects funded will be in low-income communities. Every dollar not spent on debt service can go to more classrooms, more teachers, more students getting the education they deserve regardless of where they live. For consistently underperforming schools, it's time for a change in management. First-rate public school superintendents, principals, teachers, and operators make the difference. They are the ones who give our kids a shot at a real education. So when local control intended to benefit children turns into organized chaos to protect bureaucrats, expect a united legislature and a chief executive to make a change. Looming over all of our discussions about education is a court order demanding payment of money we don't have. Here's the short of it. Elected leaders acted in good faith during the Great Recession to keep statutory commitments to education while also keeping this state afloat. And now, the courts have given us a choice between a fiscal crisis or a constitutional crisis. So I say to you, the legislature, settle this lawsuit. To the education community, be reasonable and put this behind us. It's time to stop paying lawyers and start paying teachers. And Attorney General Brnovich, dust off your dictionary and help us out here. The words of the statute are clear. And means and, or means or. Of course, improving the lives of Arizona's children can't and won't end when they leave the classroom. Too many of our kids find themselves in difficult family situations because their dads aren't being dads. So guys, I've got a message for all of you out there. When the authorities know of a deadbeat dad in Arizona, find him and hold him to his responsibilities with the full force of law. If you're old enough to father a child in Arizona, you're old enough to assume financial responsibility for that child. For single moms being stiffed by deadbeat dads, you need to know we're on your side and help is on the way. With all this renewed focus on opportunity in Arizona, it's worth remembering that the best of these can be opportunities to serve. In November, I launched an effort during the holiday season called Serving Arizona to highlight volunteer and charitable efforts throughout our state. Visit these food banks and shelters, and you'll see firsthand those who are struggling the most in our communities. You'll also see the best of our state, people taking a little bit of time out of their busy days to help those most in need. Maybe it's serving lunches, maybe it's packing food baskets, maybe it's reading to a child. Whatever it is, these selfless Arizonans are an example for those of us elected to represent them. Christmas season is come and gone, but Serving Arizona has not. Giving more to charities close to our heart is always a good thing, but there's nothing like giving your time. And I hope with this effort to encourage that spirit. Our state is not without its challenges, but we have the leadership to reach our full potential. And I'm not just talking about here in this Capitol. I'm talking about the leadership of all Arizonans. The mom who's doing everything she can to make sure her children have the opportunities she didn't. The entrepreneur who is risking everything she's got to chase her dreams. The teacher who will stay late tonight to help tutor one of his students. It's about all of us. All Arizonans have a stake in making this state the best place in America. In less than a month, our state will host the Super Bowl, for its third time. As a sports fan, I'm pretty excited. I know you are too. It's a prime opportunity to showcase Arizona to the rest of the country. It's a chance for everyone in the world to know what we know, that Arizona is the place to be. Members of the legislature, I'm grateful for this chance we have to do good for our state. This is why the people sent us here. So let politics stand down for a while. Let future elections wait their turn. Let's give our best for Arizona. It's time to get to work. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, there you have it. Doug Ducey, first state of the state. And, I think even his critics will know for sure that given his business record, which I guess some of that came under fire during the campaign, about when he sold Cold Stone Creamery and who benefited from that and did they expand too quickly, all of that stuff. I think they know that there's a guy who's pretty competent.
Right.
And I think that was the sense going into the election, that you had two candidates, Fred Duval and Doug Ducey, who are both very, very competent by any measure. So I think there's a little bit of hopefulness in that room probably today that they can get some things done. But I think the backdrop of it that's so tough is that the budgetary problems here are really deep and systemic. And until this economy starts really humming and revenues start coming in, they're going to have a lot of tough choices to make, and priorities are going to be tough to come by because there's just, you do need a certain amount of money to run this thing.
Right. I mean, let's kind of recap. I mean, I have his
Sure.
speech in my hand. Recap. I marked some of the moments that, stood out to me. I mean, he talked about spending
Sorry,
more.
I'm on the verge of sneezing, so
no
pardon me.
worries. I can take another shot while you sneeze
No,
so
that's
no one
all right.
watches it if that's
all right.
But, he talked about not, spending more on education. We talked about education a little bit before.
Right. We don't have the money
Ducey's
to spend.
But
it's not an option.
But he's talking about how he's going to do it in this speech. He's talking about bringing in like a unbiased inspector to
Right.
kind of
an auditor. This is what a
Right.
businessman would do.
Right. That's what he's trying to do
exactly
to
what a
figure out
businessman
where
would
they
do.
can cut their costs.
Sure.
And then
He wants to put more dollars in the classroom. It
Right,
doesn't mean
that-
we can spend more. He's saying, can we use what we have and
Right.
what we've earmarked? Can we use it more wisely?
Right.
How about this? When he talked about the fresh outlook of newcomers, not trapped in old ways
Right.
of thinking about state spending, taxes, public education, and the role of government in general.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's taking that outsider's view that I'm going to run this thing like a business.
Right.
We're going to look at this thing in a different way. And
But maybe that's a good thing.
Sure. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think the cautionary tale here for folks is that running the state of Arizona is not like running a business. When you're running the business, you have the final say, unless you've got a board of directors you have to answer to. His board of
Right.
directors are 90 people at the legislature with
Right.
different opinions and different
That's
priorities.
that's the federal government, that's state, that's all government.
So running it like a business, while there are some similarities and parallels, some of that can be overplayed.
Right. I think he wants to take maybe the best elements of the way businesses run.
Sure.
And try to apply it. Like you said, hiring
And it's a
an
great goal,
auditor. Right.
but it is government. It's not a business.
Right. And then he started talking about all of these empty schools and empty classrooms. And I'm not as familiar with the Arizona education. So are there just empty schools?
Well, there are a couple
around?
things. There are a couple of things happening. A lot of the choices in education in Arizona, we are really a leader when it comes to charter schools and school choice.
Mm-hmm.
But with that comes kids leaving the traditional public school and going to a charter.
I see.
So that means an empty fanny in the seat that they just left the public school.
Okay.
But the dollars in this state go
Are
to
still
charter
funding
schools.
those.
They're still funding those. Well, they're not, because it's per pupil.
Okay.
But that money now, the kid has left and gone to a charter school. That money follows a child to the charter school.
Okay.
It's based on per pupil funding. So that means that school, that traditional public school,
Right.
lost a student. They lost that funding, and that kid went to a charter
So that's
where
what
the
he
money
means
is now going.
when he said there are nearly 400,000 empty seats in the public school system. It's 400,000 students that are not
That's
in
right.
the traditional public school system.
That's right.
And these
So-
charter schools, though, are still state funded.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, they get a funding formula that is actually more than what a kid gets in the public school. The reason is because public schools, they can pass overrides, and you get this on your ballot every couple of years. A school asks for an override. Charter schools don't have the ability to ask for an override in a vote. It's a private entity, quasi-private entity. So
I mean, is there a limit on how many students a charter school can allow in, though?
just based on each charter,
Right.
they set their own limits.
Okay.
But these charters are flourishing in Arizona because we have created that climate, starting with 5 Symington, to try to let schools determine their own fate in their own way, teaching even a tailored curriculum to what the parent wants their kids to learn. And charter schools have been a big hit in Arizona. A lot of kids are going to them.
Right.
So, but that again means a fanny out of the seat of the traditional, your elementary school down the street.
And what's the drawback of allowing all those kids to go to charter school?
Well, the drawback, I guess, if you were going to be a critic of that, is that the families exercising that option to a great degree probably are more affluent. They have more money. Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. Some of the schools that he points to that are doing incredibly well. These schools are a pool of some of the cream of the crop of this community. I'm speaking of Basis, Veritas. These are really, you'll find that the students not only bright, but the parents are extremely bright and probably very successful, and in many cases very well heeled. They're smart folks, and they're well compensated families. So you get this kind of have and have not.
Right.
And the governor talked about this.
Yeah.
I thought this was a really interesting point. He said that, pardon me, I've got a little bit of a cold here.
I know he said half the projects funded
He
would be
said,
in low-income communities.
Many teachers will agree with me on this, that the quality of a child's education should not be determined by what neighborhood their parents can afford to live
Right.
in. And that's, he is saying that if the kid is in an underperforming school in a neighborhood where the school is bad, there should be a charter choice where they can go.
So there are no charter options
No, there are.
Oh,
there
there
are,
are.
and kids take advantage of this.
in those areas.
Sometimes not.
Okay.
It depends. But downtown Phoenix has several, so. So he's got a lot of challenges.
So is the goal just to make the public schools that aren't doing well more like charter schools, or what is?
I think he's
What is the
applying.
goal?
I think what he is saying is some of the lessons we've learned in how we have fostered school choice and how some of these charters are run. Let's take some of that and apply it to the traditional public school.
Right. Yeah, because he does make some references, sort of dig at the federal government and, applying.
That has to do with Common Core.
Okay.
Yeah, he talked about.
Marked it somewhere.
Yeah, I've got it. For too long, the federal government has forced a one-size-fits-all model on our education system. Politicians, bureaucrats on the other side of the country, with no understanding of our state or the needs of our teachers and students, have sought to impose their standards, that's Common Core, on and their will on our youth. He is not a Common Core fan. He thinks it's a top-down Washington scheme. Well, in reality, and this is important, we should talk about this for a moment, Common Core was developed not by Washington. It was developed by governors around the country who came together and recognized that for the United States to be competitive, we needed to have a set of standards that everyone could look to and say, that's what these kids need to know to be successful in the world, and for our kids to not only be better within the United States, Oregon against Arizona, Washington against Texas. How can we figure out who's performing and who's not? We need a national standard, but we need a standard, more importantly, they found, so that we know where we stand against other kids globally, because we're competing in a global economy.
Right.
That's what Common Core was designed to do. It was not a Washington scheme. President Obama, I hate to break it to our viewers, did not dream up Common Core. It was dreamt up by business leaders, education leaders, and governors from both parties across the country.
What was the fact? What was the? I mean, he referenced
But he does not.
like 96%.
Well, I don't recall.
It was 96% of students were unable.
We're failing. We're underperforming.
Underperforming and unable to even.
That has to do with civics. He wants civics taught.
Yeah.
He wants civics taught in the public schools. And that would go for charters as well, that you would have. It's time to make this right, and there's a bipartisan bill, the American Civics Bill. Send it to my desk. I will sign it immediately. He wants people to understand how our society and government works and how it interfaces with the public. So he wants civics taught as a mandatory requirement in the public schools. He believes that's an important objective and goal.
This whole thing was pretty much dedicated to education of these like 6 pages. I mean,
a lot of the speech was
speech.
because it's the biggest issue we face.
Right.
How do you fund and keep a new generation of kids thriving and performing and growing if we're not funding
do you
education?
think he's going to face a battle with the legislature?
The battle will be over where to spend the money. The battle will be over priorities and where to spend the money we have.
Right. I mean, everyone that was in that room, those are the people that are going to help determine where the budget
Yes.
goes. And I mean, for me, I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but as I was listening, I was really paying attention to where the applause breaks weren't and weren't. Because I felt like that allowed me to gauge, I guess.
What was moving the room?
Right, right. And obviously, you know, there were certain things about education people were cheering on, but I felt like when he talked about spending more, I think I didn't hear as much of an applause as.
Well, there isn't more to spend.
Right,
He's
exactly.
talking about reallocating dollars we've got.
Reallocating or
But
putting
remember
more money
that-
there.
that-
I didn't feel like. I don't think everyone's on board with that.
Well,
let's put it that way.
And you got to remember the room he's
Yeah.
playing to. In the Arizona legislature, it's still dominated by Republicans. So they're not. They may not be as open to. Let's say it's a choice between funding prisons, incarceration, which we
Right.
spend a lot of money on, or education. Some people may say, hey, the first priority of government is to have a safe society. We need to lock up criminals and keep them behind bars. That's money you can't spend on education.
Right.
So there are going to be these priorities. And he may come into a conflict with not only Democrats, but Republicans on these issues, and undoubtedly will.
Right. I mean, we're actually just awaiting the Democrat response. That
That
will happen
will-
any minute. The Democrats are going to hold a press conference to respond to Governor Ducey's State of the State address, and I know we have a photographer out there. We'll be bringing that up for our viewers to watch shortly whenever that happens.
That'll
so.
be Senator Katie Hobbs, who's the House or the Senate Minority Leader. Eric Meyer, who's the House Minority Leader, will also be part of that.
Right.
I think it's important that we point out as well that, the governor today talked about this education lawsuit, which we've been under the threat of, because during the downturn, voters, back in 2002, I believe, voters in Arizona said, we want to preserve a certain amount of spending for education, going to the classroom. During the downturn, the legislature cut that funding, even though the voters had passed it, because they had nowhere else to cut. Again, we pointed out earlier, education's half of the budget.
Right.
So if government gets slashed and doesn't have revenue coming in, and they need to cut, education's still discretionary dollars, even though
Right.
the voters said yes. So against the public's wishes, they cut education funding, which the voters had said years ago they didn't want. Now this has been caught up in the courts over a lawsuit because people sued and said, look, you can't cut this funding. Find somewhere else to cut. The legislature said, we'd love to. There is nowhere else to cut. So they cut it, knowing that there'd be a lawsuit, but it bought them time to get their house in order, get their fiscal house in order. So Ducey said today he's calling on the legislature to stop the lawsuit and settle it. Settle the lawsuit. And I thought that was really an interesting point, because he, during the campaign, I asked him during the debate whether he was going to stop the fighting and end this lawsuit, and now he's asking for everybody to sit around the table and figure it out.
Well, okay. I have another question. I mean, you've obviously been watching many of these State of the States here in Arizona. How different is Governor Ducey's State of the State from, let's say, ones that Governor Brewer had given in the past?
You know, they all kind of blend together. You could probably find that the Republican ones are fairly similar. I didn't see anything really groundbreaking here. And the Democratic ones, Bruce Babbitt's to Janet Napolitano's to Rose Moffort's, 3 Democrats in recent history. They wouldn't be all that different in their priorities. They might put education a little higher than the Republicans would. Democrats would probably say, just through orthodoxy, let's figure out a way to spend more. We need to raise some taxes. Republicans are going to say, no, we don't believe in raising taxes, make government more efficient, cut government, and less taxes. So
Right.
those are kind of the typical, demarcation of where the parties fall.
Right.
If it were a Democrat today being sworn in or doing a State of the State, they would be saying, look, the time is to raise taxes to pay for improvements in education. We can't do it without spending
Do the
more.
governors tend to follow, like, partisan, like,
Yes.
tradition? Yes.
They do. They do. Yeah. I mean, we have not had a lot of governors completely bridge. If they're Democrat, they tend to follow orthodoxy of the Democrats.
Right.
Republicans. And we haven't seen a lot of crossover. Some, not a lot.
Not in-
Governor
at
Brewer
least in
actually,
the
Governor
local
Brewer actually did some things like raising taxes, which is against, Republican core beliefs generally.
Right.
But she did it because she felt it was important in a crisis and needed to be done. So you'll see sometimes there will be moves either way, shades, and that's what the governor has that bully pulpit to do that, to say, look, I know I'm a Democrat. This is what the governor may say. I'm a Democrat, but I believe we've got to hold the line on taxes. Or a Republican governor might say, you know what, we need to hold the line on taxes, but in this case, as Governor Brewer did, we need to raise them because we
Right.
need the money.
What was Governor Ducey's, what kind of things did he have as part of his campaign? Did he talk a lot about what he talked about today when he was campaigning to be governor?
The biggest issue in the campaign, and he got dogged by this, and both candidates did, is a lack of specifics, which when you get into specifics in areas that you're going to cut or enhance, now you've put it on the record, you've put it on the table, and voters
People expect that.
or voters may not like it. You may
Right.
turn some voters off. So they tend to hold their cards so close to the vest during a campaign because they don't want to say anything that will cost them
What
votes.
platform did he run on? What was his? I mean, again,
I'm going to run the state like a business. That, in essence, was his platform.
Okay, and that's kind of what he addressed today.
That's what we're going to see. I mean,
Right.
that's what he knows. You always have to look at, with these politicians, where do they come from? What is their orientation in terms of what they have done in the past? Ducey's experience primarily is in the business sector, so he's going to say, look, that skill translates to this job. I'm going to run it like a business. We've heard politicians say this many, many times.
Right.
But again, as we
But he
talked
had- I
about,
mean, he
it's
does-
not a business.
I guess we'll just, I mean, again, like you said, you have this figure that has, a governor, sort of similar to having that role of president. You have all these other people that can actually,
You're the
Yeah.
CEO
yeah.
to some degree of the state, right?
But
Which he's done.
What you say isn't necessarily the final say.
Of
I
course
guess is
not.
what I'm
Yeah,
trying
you've
to
got
say.
to deal with 60 votes in the House and 30 in the Senate in Arizona. So
Right.
he's fortunate that he's got Republican edges in both chambers,
Mm-hmm.
so that makes it easier to do what he wants to do. But Brewer, actually, she ran into her biggest problems in many cases with fellow Republicans. She rankled her fellow Republicans over many issues. There were things they agreed on, but then she got crosswise with many Republicans. That can happen.
Right.
But that's what you want the governor. You want the governor to be the CEO and say, I know this is my party, but I think they're wrong here. And you want them to be able to do some of this stuff.
Right. Well, what do you expect the Democrat response to be, the one that we are just awaiting?
I think what we might hear from the Democrats is that education is such a critical issue that we've got to figure out a way to fund it. And they may talk a little bit about the sunsetting of that temporary tax that Governor Brewer after getting it,
Right.
sunsetted it because it was written up that way. We drew up that law that we would only collect these taxes for a finite period of time. I think Democrats will probably say that was a mistake. We should have continued it and funded education with it. They may agree that it's time to end this lawsuit. They may find some agreement there, because I think no one wants to go forward with fighting. The Republicans, you're probably going to have to pay it anyway. It might buy you some time, but you're going to have to pay it anyway and refund education. Maybe you can all sit down and say, well, we're not going to refund it all the way, but we can do this much. And at least some dollars start flowing back into the classroom. You get a crash course on Arizona
I'm
politics.
learning and I also know a lot about the education system in case I'm having children anytime soon, which I'm not right now. But,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's important. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, outside of our own, keeping the state safe and healthy, it's job one, really.
Right,
It's
education. I mean,
educating these
even
kids.
people who don't have children, factor education in because of, purchasing a home. It's like the value of your home.
Yeah,
is
sure.
so dependent on your school district.
That's
for
right.
example,
But
or like
even
what your local
even
home
beyond
schools
that,
are.
if your neighborhood is troubled with kids who aren't getting an education and they're starting to fall into bad behavior and criminal behavior,
Right.
that impacts your neighborhood too. And
Right.
that's what, when you really get down to it and you talk to educators, okay, how do you appeal to someone in Surprise who's retired, their kids have been educated, they've graduated from college, they don't have any skin in the game anymore. In other words, how do you appeal to those folks in Surprise, just as an example,
Right.
to say education's important, even though your kids are educated, you still need to be on board with it because it'll affect you. It may be somebody trying to snatch your purse. It may be somebody trying to rob your house. I mean, these things, there are consequences.
It's all connected.
It's all connected, yes.
Right.
Now, when are we going to hear from do we know when we're going to hear from the
Well,
Democrats?
it was scheduled to be 15 minutes after Ducey's speech wrapped up, and I understand that our photographer that was at Governor Ducey's State of the State was then heading to, where was it?
Well, you got me.
Going to the Arizona Senate Democratic Caucus room.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not too far apart.
No, they're right across
I mean,
they're right across the mall.
Right, so I'm just I'm monitoring these monitors to figure out
I'm glad you are, because
the
it looks like
status.
mission control in here.
I know. I'm just like, let's
Okay.
look at these monitors because I do know that is supposed to be any minute now, hopefully soon. I'm not too sure. I've just, sent
and
a message out.
I don't want to say that there's going to be great differences here. I mean, I think the part of the proper thing to do on a day like this, when you're just getting started with the new session, is to say, listen, we heard the governor and we're going to try to work with the governor. I mean, there's going to be some conciliatory. The Democrats aren't just going to go on the attack, I don't believe. I think you want some spirit of bipartisanship. The governor's called for that, and I think they've got to take him at his word. He did, I will say, I think it's one of the smartest moves he made. After he was elected, he met with each and every member of the legislature, personally.
In November, December.
I can't remember that being done. I'm
How
not
many
talking
people
about
are there in there?
90.
90.
I'm not talking about Republicans. He met with everybody, Democrats. He wanted to get to know them personally a little bit so that makes it easier when he needs to call them or lean on them.
Right, I think
and
that's
say, look, I know where you're coming from. I need your help on this. This is important.
But I think that's a smart move. It's a personalization, and then maybe even from like going back to your point of view, the whole business owner perspective.
That could
those
be.
are the good bosses, the bosses that actually get to know their employees.
Sure.
Maybe not even business owners, any sort of boss, the one that actually.
It's about relationships.
Right. So.
And how do you lean on somebody to do you a favor or help you along if you don't have some type of personal connection to them?
Right.
That's tough. President Obama got blasted for some of this, that he didn't make enough outreach to people in Congress where he could kind of lean on folks.
Sure.
Not within his own party, but on the other side to say, let's work this thing out. And so you heard this a lot, and you even heard it from Democrats who said they felt like they didn't get to know him well enough to really want to carry the water for the administration. So, I mean, it is about these relationships. It's important on every level.
Right. Well, I just found out that we're having some technical issues, and we are not going to have the Democrats' response live, but we will have it on the Fox 10 News
Okay.
at 5 p.m.
Yeah, this is not, by the way, if anybody thinks this is some kind of clandestine plot to silence the Democrats. It's not. We
Oh, no,
we
no,
do
no,
have
no.
technical
Yeah,
problems, trust me.
Yeah, we have some technical issues. Unfortunately, we won't be able to bring that live. We will have it on the newscast, however.
Sure. And we will have it on this channel, the YouTube channel, correct?
It will be streaming live, yes, when the newscast is live as well. Yes.
Okay, so
Whether
we will
I
have the
actually
Democratic
video
response
here,
in its entirety. I'm sure we will.
I don't want to say yes. I don't want to put it on the record
Okay.
because I can't 100% guarantee that, but we will make every effort to do so.
Okay.
For sure. I know we do have a photographer out there, but bringing in live, I think, is the problem right now.
Right.
So, John.
Okay, so we'll have it on tape, and we'll try to re-rack it for you and show you.
That's right. Well, I know you've been up here with me for quite a while today.
I know.
It's always fun having you up here.
Likewise, I enjoy it. So
There's some other big news today. I have a lot of reporters on different stories. Mia Garcia is actually going to join me now to talk about
good. Okay. Mia?
a graffiti story.
Take care. Good to see you.
Good to see you,
Thank you.
too. Mia.
Hi, John.
Little musical chairs. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And yes, we will, by the way, to answer John's question, we will be putting the entire Democrat response on our YouTube channel later, so you will be able to see it here. Just not live here, but we will have it later. Okay, that's enough government talk. We did a lot
Yeah.
on, the
So now
government.
let's get to crime,
Let's get to crime, which
which is
something-
what I cover.
Right, which that's what happens here, or everywhere actually. Every news channel covers crime. And you know what? Me and John were just talking a bit about crime as well and how it applies to, the government and all of that. So it is kind of connected.
It
I
is.
don't know.
Well, I mean, you have police, and they are kind of government employees, so
Right.
that works. And this actually has to do with police.
Right,
So there was some graffiti at a park, El Dorado Park in Scottsdale. It's a very popular skate park, and it's right off of McDowell and
I
77th
actually have the
Avenue.
video right here.
Yeah, there it is. So this morning, people who live in the neighborhood woke up. They're taking a walk around the park, and they see cops kill, so kill cops. And one of the people that we spoke to out there called police, filed a police report immediately, and the graffiti has been covered up. However, he was really concerned because he says it's not the kind of message that he wants to send out. And also, there's lots of kids who go to this park. That message was right next to a playground. And so we did some investigating. Also found out that at Hohokam Elementary, which is about a mile and a half away, on New Year's Eve, there was a similar message that was spray painted on a wall, a side wall of a building, and it said "Kill Cops." That's all it said. They removed it immediately, and they say because school wasn't in session, it was Christmas break, none of the students really saw it. And that's where we are. We did talk to police. They said they don't know if the incidents are related.
Okay.
The good news is right now they don't think it's a threat. They think it's just these punk kids who are out
Yeah.
spray painting. And they say sometimes, when you hear stuff in the news and there's lots of newsworthy things, they'll start to spray paint about issues that are in the news. So they don't feel like it's a direct threat. They say typically when graffiti happens, the gang enforcement unit goes out, they take pictures, they analyze it, and right now they don't think it's gang related at all.
Okay.
Again, they just think it's some kids in the neighborhood who decided to vandalize, which of course if you get caught you could be in big trouble for.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned that it was, here at a park and then also at a school.
That's right, an elementary
Is
school.
there a reason, that they want to expose this sort of message to children? Or do you think they're not even thinking that far ahead, these vandals?
In my opinion, I
Yeah.
think that maybe these teens or kids live near Hohokam Elementary. They come over to the park to skateboard. It's a really, really popular skate park, especially after 5. Tons of kids out there. It's a mile and a half away. I think someone probably lives in the neighborhood
Right.
and then decided to also hit
What
the...
intersection is was the park?
It is kind of right off of McDowell and Hayden.
Okay.
So the park is on the west side of McDowell and Hayden, and the elementary school is on the east side.
Okay. So right in the same area.
It's in the same area.
Right.
It is, and it's in South Scottsdale.
So there's probable cause to believe that it might be the same kids or individuals.
So police say nothing directly links it. I'm not sure how they could link it because it was,
Right.
10 days away?
Right.
12.
Other than the message.
Yes, other than the message was similar and, again, kind of general area. So right now they don't know. But the good news is they don't think it's a direct threat to them. And when police say that.
I mean, yeah, obviously, if they felt threatened, they would be.
But people in
Honest.
the neighborhood are angry. I mean, just saying to kill anyone and
Right.
graffitiing it is not the kind of message you
Right,
want.
and you don't want your in addition to that, obviously parents are upset, but you don't want your kids exposed to that message either.
Yeah, how do you explain that? You're walking your 4-year-old through the park, and then you see what is kill cops.
Right, especially, at an age where, young kids are trying to read everything around them, anytime you see words, you're trying to read it as a small child, and then they say that, and it's like, it's unfortunate. So you're going to have more at 5 p.m.?
We will.
Okay.
We will.
So you'll have the full story from
We
Mia
will.
at 5.
I think
Anything you can tease?
Well, I think we're the top story at 5.
Okay.
You'll hear from the man who initially saw it and called police, and then a couple of the people who live in the neighborhood, and they're pretty angry.
Naturally.
So, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let you go work on your story. Thanks
you.
so much for joining me, as always. I look forward to watching your story at 5.
Thank you.
And for all you viewers out there, I actually want to show you this video because there was a pot protest. Demonstrators gathered at the state capitol to show support for what will certainly be a hot topic this session. The group is pushing for a bill to legalize marijuana, claiming that the drug is safer than alcohol. As you may or may not know, recreational marijuana use is now legal in 4 states. And now we have Steve Kraft. Thank you for joining me.
So we're here to talk about legalization of marijuana.
No, I was telling our viewers because I was just showing them some interesting video from this morning, a pot protest.
Oh, okay.
Demonstrators
So they
gathering
were
at the
against
state-
it or for it?
They're supporting it. They're pushing for a bill to legalize marijuana. So I guess it's not a protest because, they're supporters. So it's not protesting.
They're protesting the lack of
the
legal
lack
marijuana.
of legalization
It's like a
of marijuana.
double negative.
Yeah.
Double negative is a positive.
Right. So they want to be maybe the 5th state where recreational marijuana.
So we've got it in Oregon, we've got it
Colorado.
Washington, Colorado.
Where else is it legal recreationally?
Mississippi? No, that was a joke. Washington, D.C.,
It's
I
not-
think is pending, am I right?
I don't want to say yes.
Isn't it pretty much legal in California? Come on.
It's medical marijuana is legal in California,
everyone in
but
California
everyone
seems to
turns
be-
it, yeah, no one really.
I was in San Francisco.
I won't say all of California. I actually think that it's more maybe the Los Angeles area, even the San Francisco
Yeah.
area. But I will say that I think people are harder on it, like where I grew up in Fresno, Central California,
Sure. Bakersfield,
a more
probably not.
exactly Bakersfield, Fresno, a more conservative area
Imperial.
where
Inland
they don't
Empire.
have maybe the same liberal points of view as
Blythe.
Los Angeles.
Probably not a big deal in Blythe.
Right. I mean, sure. But anyways, I
India.
did not bring you up here to talk about the legalization or lack
You know,
thereof
I'm just
of
gonna
marijuana.
run with it.
Unless that's the topic you want to talk about, because
This
I
is
know.
a free-form exploration.
I mean, because let's be honest, Steve. 90% of the time I have you up here, what are we talking about? What's the story that is the Steve Kraft story of all stories?
Okay, Jodi Arias.
Yep. So.
Yes, I was at the Jodi Arias trial today.
And.
Spoiler alert.
Well, I noticed that you tweeted a lot from there today. And instead of me reading your tweets to our viewers, I thought I'd just bring
do
you
that.
up here because you know firsthand,
I'm like a tweeting machine.
off the top of your head,
I do.
exactly, what happened. It seemed like a lot transpired today.
Yes, we had a detective on the stand, a Mesa Police detective, who now, of course, is working with the prosecution, case agent on this case. His name is Esteban Flores. And he admitted to, under defense questioning, to using his pen to, and you know more about computers than me, but I guess, right? You were surrounded by all
I mean,
these.
I know a lot about these monitors
Right.
up here, and
Well-
I also, I guess,
Let me ask you a question. You have a
Grew up in-
laptop computer,
I do.
and you touch it with a pen or whatever.
Right, you
and
don't
it's
have any
in sleep
fingerprints
mode,
on it.
And it's in sleep mode. That somehow changes the files on the computer when you
I
wake
don't
it out of
understand.
sleep
Like
mode.
I saw those tweets, and I didn't understand that. Just to wake up a computer doesn't mean that the files disappear.
Well,
I
technically
mean, I don't
something happens.
understand.
Something happens to the evidence that fails to preserve it in its pristine, virginal state,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. Taking poetic license here. When you touch the computer
Sure.
without what's known as a write blocker that kind of saves whatever was on the computer before you touch the computer. And according to the defense, Mesa Police were at a minimum sloppy and at most maybe even deliberately negligent, who knows, in handling this crucial evidence. And so because they say the prosecution team mishandled this crucial question about whether there was, in fact, pornography of all kinds on Travis Alexander's computer, and this was covered up very systematically or not shared with the defense team in the earlier trial and in this one, really, until recently. Therefore, the death penalty should be taken off the table by the judge. And she was supposed to rule this morning at 9:30. Would this happen? Sloppy. She didn't rule. At most. The story we're hearing is that she's waiting for the testimony of Detective Flores and another computer expert who's going to come up on Wednesday to be concluded.
Detective Flores was giving testimony today, so it's not over. He's still on the stand.
He is done.
Oh, he is done.
He is done. He was taken off. He was dismissed as a witness today. But the other expert is not able to talk about this until Wednesday. So we don't have court tomorrow. We will have this John Smith character, who's a computer expert called by the defense. That's his pseudonym. He's allowed not to give his real name.
Okay.
He'll be up on Wednesday. But the interesting thing about tomorrow is that finally we should get a look at what it was that Jodi Arias said in court out of our hearing a couple months ago during that celebrated few days when we were kicked out of court unceremoniously by Judge Sherry Stevens, including not just media but general public was also kicked out.
Right, she was giving she gave her testimony in private.
Right.
That information was supposed to come out last week, right?
It was supposed to come out, and the Supreme Court pretty much.
Everything in regards to this trial has just been pushed back.
This is like an Alice in Wonderland time warp that I'm stuck in and can't get out of, and I just feel like I'm flipping through the fourth dimension right now.
I know, when I had you up
soon
here,
to be in the fifth dimension.
When I had you up here last week, you were saying that this whole trial should be wrapped by end of February.
That's what I said.
I know, I'm just reminding you, because the way things are looking...
Are you holding me to this?
No, I'm not holding you to it. I'm just reminding you that you may have had high hopes.
I did, and it might be. I mean, theoretically, the judge could rule, and she's not going to do it.
Yeah.
When this next witness is done, that, you know what, this is not a death penalty case, we're going to see, that's the end. But I don't think she's going to do that. She seems to have very little appetite to make any kind of ruling like that. She's just going to not rule on it, or basically just deny it and let it be an appeals issue. But at least tomorrow, we should see some sort of transcript from this testimony by Jodi Arias. However, we're told that it's going to be really expensive to get, potentially, unless we're able to get a copy from one of the lawyers interested in the case, which hopefully we will. And the whispers that I'm hearing, and I'm not attributing this to anybody, this is just like...
Whispers.
Whispers. I'm hearing.
You're just hearing voices.
I'm hearing voices, but seriously, not leaving the voices to the side. What I'm told is that it's going to be very mundane testimony from Jodi Arias, just sort of humdrum details about her early life in California and her early run of relationships. I don't think we're going to get anything particularly about Travis Alexander. So why would she want to talk about that? That's the person she murdered.
Right.
Right? I mean, that can't leave a good impression on a juror.
Sure.
But just sort of talking about her life, working in restaurants and bouncing around California and growing up in extreme Northern California and the guy that she lived with for 4 years and who had a child and the guy she dated in high school. I mean, that kind of stuff is probably going to come out in some detail.
What is it like to be Jodi Arias' ex-boyfriend?
I think,
for those people.
Well, a lot of us have sort of talked about that in the group of reporters covering this trial for many months now.
Sure.
And our feeling is that for some people it's sort of a there but for the grace of God go I kind of thought. It has to be with some of these people. Imagine this one relationship that she had with a man named Daryl. She lived with him for nearly 4 years.
Right.
And had she had that sort of a freak out with him.
Or anger.
Well,
maybe
or
it's just,
something.
If you take... looking at it, maybe those were real relationships. I mean, I think the thing that we see here is that Jodi's anger stems from the desire to want a real relationship and him using her as sort of a sex toy. I mean, I think that's where it's like, that's where the rage... I'm not speaking on behalf of Jodi, but as an observer, I feel like
maybe that was
what
different.
Drives you
maybe that was different from her other relationships. Maybe there wasn't that sort of
anger
or that weird kind of dynamic,
Obsession.
that dynamic of
Right.
sex
And I guess like
versus
as you get
love
old, I mean,
versus-
your psychology changes as you get older.
Right.
You know, as you experience different
'Cause she
things.
was basically,
right. Psychologically, her relationship with Travis Alexander could have changed her. I think.
Or maybe she
mentally,
really
you know.
wanted to be in a relationship at that point.
Right.
And just at the point where she really wanted to settle down, she was in this.
Or maybe she
don't
was angry at his quote unquote like hypocrisy. It's like, here you have this life, you know, where to the public you're this good Mormon guy
Right.
that wants to have a nice like wife, and you know that's the life you want.
Right.
You know, you're pursuing. You know, he was apparently pursuing this other girl that was very like
She was,
traditional
she was.
Mormon, like
Correct.
the kind of wife you would want
Right.
as a practicing Mormon
Right.
Mormon man. But then you have, you know, this whole secret life,
Right.
this sex buddy, this pornography that was on the computer. I mean, maybe it's that I don't know.
She was a booty call, and she couldn't handle it.
right, but not only. But I think it's more beyond a booty call. It's being a booty call, but I think also the hypocrisy. I'll be honest. It's like, how can you do this with me, but then front to everyone else like you're this perfect
Well,
person?
this is, and that was good how you used the
You
word
know.
front. That was very up to the
I was
minutes.
speaking very much
Frontin'.
in slang. I was like, yeah. I was
I'm
like, if I
glad
was
you're
talking to
not
one of my
frontin'.
friends, I'm like, but that's what I
Right.
think that's
Well, I
what
think
drives
this is-
that anger
it's-
almost, because it's
yeah.
like, if you're a guy that very much, you know, your reputation is such that you're the guy that has booty calls. If you are in Jodi's position, maybe you're not as you're maybe more okay with the situation. I don't know.
Well,
these are all sort of hypothetical.
But it's interesting you should bring this up,
things.
because I think this is a theme the defense is trying to make,
right.
trying to construct throughout this long sentencing retrial, because they're hoping that at least a few jurors subscribe to this point of view
Right.
that you're talking about here, and can at least, while certainly not condoning her actions, which are
Murder.
awful, but at least sort of put it in some sort of context such that a juror could decide, well, she should be put away, but she shouldn't be put to death. And that's what the defense is struggling to do in this
Sure.
case. And, you know, who knows what the jury is going to decide? We don't know. But that is the case they're trying to make for her.
Right.
And right now, I mean, they're trying anything they can do, mostly to preserve issues on appeal if they need to.
Right.
If she does get the death penalty. And that's why we have all these various challenges, these repeated calls for mistrials, and
Right.
battle over evidence and accusations that the prosecutors have covered up or negligently destroyed, ample evidence of porn. And some of the names of the computer files and
You
porn
tweeted
movies.
some of them.
Yeah.
I think
did.
I did have your Twitter.
I had like it was a Venus monster.
Whereas
It was, yeah. Well, I tweeted it. So.
yeah, I mean, I can just pull up the tweet.
These for folks to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make this up. This was just something that was in the trial. So
Right. Let me just
yeah, it just
so we can.
we'll put that on the very nicely framed. That was in fact the title of one of the videos found on Travis Alexander's computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know what those four symbols stand for. It could be well, any four-letter word. You know.
Yeah, I think I
Cafe.
figured-
How about cafe? I don't know.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of graphic.
Let's go through some of your tweets,
Oh goodness.
just in case we haven't touched upon everything that happened today.
Well, if you keep going here, you'll get to some. If you can kind of advance some.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Prosecutor Juan Martinez shouts at Detective Flores. It sounds like he fears the case could fizzle if he cannot rehabilitate Flores' testimony. Very well put, if I do say so myself.
You mean by the tweet that you made?
Whoever
it?
tweeted that was right on the money. That's what he's doing. I've never heard a prosecutor berate his own witness and badger his own witness, because Juan Martinez knows only one speed, and that is overdrive.
I see.
Everything is to the max.
Mm-hmm.
And he sounded like an angry chihuahua today, just nipping and ferociously attacking anywhere he possibly could. Even witnesses who are sitting next to him. I mean, Detective Flores, as a case agent, sits next to him.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the defense is making some very serious accusations about mishandling evidence, and Juan Martinez desperately wants to show that Detective Flores did nothing wrong, that it was other people who were responsible for the computers, and what he did was something. This is interesting.
This one right here.
Prosecutor Martinez's shrill questioning makes it seem he is Captain Ahab and Jodi Arias is his great white whale, prey slipping out of his grasp.
I like how candid your tweets are, Steve.
Thanks. Well, this is an obvious literary allusion. We're hearkening back to the great novel Moby Dick, written by Herman Melville back in the, 1820s or 30s, something like that. But anyway, this whole notion of a captain who is on this tragic search to land the ultimate catch, which is always just out of his grasp. You get the feeling that maybe that's kind of what this trial is going to boil down to for Juan Martinez, that he's been on this mission for going on 7 years now to put this woman on death row, and he may yet succeed. But even if he does succeed in this case, there's so many issues that it could be overturned on appeal.
Right.
And, there's certainly a fighting chance that a jury is not going to be able to agree on a death penalty, in which case millions of dollars will have been spent and years will have gone by for a case that could have been, resolved, and she could have been doing her time, and we could have been moving on to other matters a long time ago.
I mean, obviously, I can't determine anything, but I feel like she's not going to get the death penalty.
Well, as a reporter, I can't jump to any conclusion. I can't get inside the heads of the jurors.
This is just me, my opinion, as I listen to it and really just objectively thinking about it. You have to get all 12 jurors on the same page that it was so malicious. And now that we talked about what we just talked about earlier, this dual lives of Travis Alexander and all of that, I think maybe I'm speaking on behalf of.
But remember, we're going
from the girl's perspective.
We're going to revisit the autopsy photos.
Right, that's true.
And those were beyond description terrible.
Right, there's no way to justify her actions.
And even in the last time around, most of the jurors were for the death penalty. I think it was 8-4.
Okay.
So this case, depending on the composition of the jury and how they look at it, I mean, it's certainly possible that she could get the death penalty. A lot of independent observers think it's a difficult needle to thread, but it could happen. And you can understand the anguish of the family, and so to be fair, I can certainly see those things. But, you sit in a courtroom for all these months, and after a while, it's easy to kind of lose sight of the heinous nature of this crime.
Right, once you're so removed from 2008 or from the images that you saw
and
from
that's
the
why
crime
she's
scene.
looking at a death penalty, because she didn't just shoot this ex-lover, which is what a lot of people do, and it becomes a second-degree murder case or maybe a first-degree murder case, depending on the planning. But, she stabbed him 27 times. She practically decapitated him.
They took pictures.
It is as bad as you can ever imagine.
I guess looking
crime
at
could be.
the facts of
and
what
there was
happened.
planning in advance of it.
Because she stole the gun from her grandparents.
Yeah, from her grandfather, and put her license plate upside down, and had a gas can with gas in her car to cover up when she was driving from Northern California, so she wouldn't have to refill her tank and leave a paper trail somewhere. I mean, it was very amateurish, but there was a level of planning to it. So she was certainly contemplating doing this terrible thing, and something snapped, and she did this terrible thing. And it's beyond our ability to even process it. And then, the thing that is frustrating, I would think, for a juror, is that the crucial part of this case, which is the actual murder of Travis Alexander, conveniently, it's a complete blank to her.
Like she forgot
Doesn't remember any of it. Nothing. So you can understand the families.
Right.
And they've lost their loved ones. So
I mean, nothing that this trial can do will bring Travis out.
No, and on all sides, it's a terrible case.
Right.
It's tragedy. I mean, and certainly her family is devastated as well.
Right.
They've lost a daughter and a sister, and who's going to never come home and could be put to death.
Right.
And so it's been
and their memory of their daughter too. I mean, it's not just like you're losing your daughter or your sister to an unfortunate car accident or something like that.
It's this terrible.
It's this terrible thing, and that is sort of your daughter, your sister's legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
So
is unfortunate.
There's a lot of tension that surrounds this, and all these folks are in court every day.
Mm-hmm.
His family's there, her family's there. They're just separated by a couple feet. Can't we just talk about marijuana?
I actually want to go through the rest of your tweets, though. Let's see. You have...
See, the prosecutor suggests Detective Flores merely touched a key. I keep getting that capital R in Travis, that's a typo. And didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And this one, of course, you can tell it's almost time for court to start when microphones pick up the pouring of the water. on the witness stand. They always pour like a big old pitcher of water. Makes you thirsty listening to it. I think it's water. It's a big ceremony before every
Right.
session of court. They have these pitchers of water because they're talking so much, everybody's throat gets dry.
Let's see what else you have.
Detective Flores says there's no child pornography on Travis Alexander's
Okay.
computer. That's important because Jodi had said that there was
Child
that she caught him looking at child pornography.
Right.
So, yeah, I've gotten a lot of reaction on this Twitter feed. Some people take issue with some of the things I write, think I'm a little snarky, but you got to have a little style, and you have to bring a little personality to covering an event like this, or otherwise it's just really hard to follow it. And you have to take some, you have to have a little, some of your personality come out.
Let's see what else is there. No
In 2008, it was okay to wake up a sleeping computer.
Right here, redirect from defense. No porn on computer is not the same as saying that Travis didn't visit
Right.
porn sites.
Right. They're saying there's a lot of computer records that show that he was all over the internet accessing porn.
Right.
Whether or not he saved it onto his hard disk could be another matter.
Sure.
I've learned a little bit about computers. There's a well-written one. No court tomorrow. Jury dismissed for today. How about that?
Okay. I mean, that's good for you. That means you won't be on the story tomorrow.
Well, I will be on the story tomorrow because we're getting the transcript tomorrow.
I see. You're right. So I'm going to have you back up here tomorrow then talking to me about the
Are
transcript.
you?
I mean, logically.
Oh, okay.
Steve, you're my
If you
Jodi
can fit
Arias
me into
expert.
your busy schedule,
Of
I will
course,
be
there's
here.
always room. It's SK and SK. I've told you this. I love having
Pair
you
of
out here.
left-handers, right on.
2 SKs that are left-handed. Yep.
Natural.
Except one spends their day in court with Jodi Arias. The other one spends their day behind 5 monitors with every person in this newsroom.
Have you shown people what it looks like on your
No,
side?
and everyone talks about like, oh, they should see your
I should
command
take a
center.
couple pictures of your setup here.
And then just show everyone.
Yeah. I'm going to let you do it.
One day we'll give everyone.
Can't you just pick up one of your GoPro cameras and
a
just turn
behind
it
the
so
scenes.
people can see what all this is?
I mean, I could just do I could make a iPhone video or
Yeah.
iPhone.
And then you could
Or I
like
could
throw it
actually
on
shoot
one
a proper video, play it in the player. But
Yeah, that'd be
one
cool.
day we'll do behind the scenes.
It's very glamorous.
That day is not today.
It's very glamorous.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you a car enthusiast?
Yes, I drive one. I like them so much I drive them.
Well, that's good. But I mean, are you?
I love cars. Yeah, absolutely.
classic cars.
Yeah. Cars are cool. What guy doesn't like cars? Of course I like cars.
Are you the kind of guy that goes to the Barrett Jackson auction?
I have. You know what I'd love to have is a Jaguar XKE. That's the most beautiful
I don't even
car.
know what that is.
A forest green, like late 1960s Jaguar XKE, that impossibly long hood. God, that's a beautiful car.
I don't. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe not the best car, and it's like this giant engine. I think it's
Right.
like, I don't know. It's really huge. It's like a V12. It's humongous. It's
Right.
always broken.
Well, Corey this morning, he had a fun assignment this morning. Mr. Corey McCloskey from our morning show was actually at the Barrett Jackson auction,
What a great assignment.
which kicked off in Scottsdale this week and actually goes on, I think, through. The auction goes on for 10 days instead of 6. It'll wrap on January 18th. Here you can see a sea of rare and historic classics. Let's see what else. And this year, legendary Arizona car collector Ron Pratt is actually putting his whole collection on the auction block. So
Wow.
that's big news. And
You
yeah,
should put in a bid.
me,
Yeah.
$5, $10. I mean, how much do these cars go for?
Hey,
Oh,
there it is. Can we show this off?
Yes.
you can actually show it right here.
This, am I right?
That's an XK.
This
Isn't
is
that
the
the
car
most-
you were talking about just now?
Oh, I love those. Wow. But aren't they broken all the time?
That I don't know.
I don't know. That's one of the all-time great cars. It's like a James Bond car. I know he drives an Aston Martin, but that would be very
Thanks,
sweet.
Steve.
Thank you very, very much. That's totally cool.
Well, I actually want to share it with viewers who may have not caught it on the morning show, Corey's hit from this morning, so that they can watch and,
Yeah, I
kind of
wanna
see
see it.
the auction for themselves. Oh, you missed it this morning because you were at Jodi Arias.
That's right.
It's all Jodi's fault, so you didn't even get to see
No, I did not.
Corey's hit either. So let me go ahead and pull that up for them now so that they can, and you can watch.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I don't know. That's one
You
of the
know
all-time great
how much I
cars.
love
It's
it
like a
out here,
James
and
Bond
we
car.
are.
I know he drives an Aston
We're
Martin.
seeing some of the Ron
That
Pratt
would be very
collection, and we've used
Thank
his
you
name
very,
a lot
very much. That's
here
totally
over the last
Well,
hour
I
or
just wanna
so.
share
But
with viewers
he
who
is
may
the
have
most
not caught it
well-known
on the
car
morning
collector
show,
in Arizona. Certainly,
Corey's
140
so they can
of his
watch
cars
and,
are going to be
you know,
crossing the
see
block starting
the
tomorrow
auction for
at
themselves. Oh, you missed
4
it this
o'clock,
morning 'cause you were at
and it's going to
Jodi
be a
Arias.
wild ride. This is the 2007 Blastoline. It is a beautiful. It's new car, obviously, but it's kind of based upon those French cars of the 30s that were so beautiful. I love his imagination. Ron Pratt loves all kinds of vehicles. If it's cool, if it's fun, he wants to have it. There's the 1948 Whizzer. Yeah, look at that scooter there. It's a beauty. Now, as we kind of come around this way, the showpiece of his collection has to be the GM Futureliner. Look at this beauty. I remember being in the tent several years ago when this crossed the block at about 4 million plus. It was like the Super Bowl. It was the craziest night ever. People were cheering. It was so exciting. But it's just one of these iconic vehicles. You're not going to find another one, but GM produced, I'm not sure how many, maybe about a dozen of them, but they used to travel around the nation and open up the sides, as you see here, and there would be General Motors' Parade of Progress. You'd see what was new for the coming year as far as GM was concerned. But it's going to be a great night. That will probably be crossing the auction block on Saturday, as all of the premier cars do. Look at this. This is the Bonneville Special. This was bought here. It's going to be sold here again. It's 1954 concept car, and it's beautiful. I believe it's based on a 53 Corvette. I think that's the body or the chassis underneath, but it's a beauty, a one of a kind, of course. So if you want to see something fresh, this is my dream car right here. Sadly, it's been put in a shrinky-dink machine. I love the Porsche Speedster, but I'll never fit in that guy. And finally, look at this, Rick. The Harley Davidson,
That's a
the
Harley.
1907 Harley
cool.
motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous.
Look at the white
Leather
wheel.
drive belt. Yeah, it's really a dynamite vehicle. So anyway, lots more fun coming your way from Barrett Jackson. You know how much.
All right, so there you had it. That was Corey McCloskey's hit from the Barrett Jackson auction this morning. It was pretty interesting to see. I feel like I want to make my way out there and check out the cars for myself. Even if I'm not a car enthusiast, I believe those cars are at least Instagrammable, minimally speaking. I just want to let you guys know that we did just get the Democratic response to Governor Ducey's speech here in-house in the office, and we're going to be uploading that to our YouTube channel shortly. So we will have the entire Democratic response to the governor's speech on our YouTube channel soon. So you'll be able to come back and check it out for yourselves. Again, as always, I encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Fox10Phoenix. That way you will be in the loop whenever we have breaking news, and you'll be able to watch it live right here. I'm Samia Khan. Thanks for watching.